Happy Saturday, Rising fam. We had a packed week of amazing interviews. Tulsi Gabbard joined us yesterday to discuss the upcoming Democratic debate and whether she will even be participating in it. Sports Illustrated legal analyst Michael McCann came on to talk about paying college athletes and the NBA China disaster. Tim Black also stopped by to chat about the 2020 race, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was amazing. And speaking of 2020, Nina Turner, the national co-chair of the Bernie Sanders campaign, she was on the show on Tuesday. She had some fairly pointed words for those critical of the campaign's decision not to immediately disclose Senator Sanders' heart attack last week. Let's take a listen to that.
When you have a crisis in your life, your first damn thought is not to notify the media.
Right.
The first thought is to find out what is going on with the doctors and then have family. So anybody, whether they're Democrat or Republican, who would level, this kind of insensitive comment is just wrong.
Saagar, is there not just a more talented surrogate, but is there a more talented figure in American politics than you? I mean,
she's the most magnetic person I've ever met.
She's amazing.
I'm like, please, be my spokeswoman. I don't even agree with you on anything. Please come work for me.
She does such a good job.
She's incredible.
People talk about her as potential vice president for Sanders, and I think he should if he's the nominee. I think he should pick someone who's outside of the box like her. No one makes the case for him and his brand of politics better than him himself.
So
and Nina Turner.
Yeah, I also love that she calls him Bernard Sanders.
Does she?
Yeah, she calls him Senator Bernard Sanders.
Oh, that's right.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good to see Nina stop by, though, and she says he's doing well, which is great to hear. And they're marching forward. It's going to be fun to watch him on the debate stage.
Absolutely.
So we also heard this week from one of our favorite pollsters. We know you love him too, the CEO of College Pulse, Terren, Klein. He discussed their latest survey of college students, and there was one thing that really jumped out at me, which is how America's youngest voting bloc feels about universal basic income. Check it out. Did you say 70% of college students support some form of UBI?
Correct.
That's unbelievable.
Wow. What
so
is
that's
another?
Let me college Democrats.
College Democrats.
Okay. That is fascinating.
That is really interesting.
30% of college students are Republican, 10% are independent, 60% are Democrats.
Right.
So you're talking about probably a majority. I mean, can't do the math that fast in my head, but you're talking about probably a majority of college student support for UBI. That's really interesting.
That was quite a data point. I was like, wow, 70%. I mean, look, everybody watching this knows I'm not down with UBI, but I do think it is an interesting backlash because it makes sense. If you're in college right now, you look at the economy, you're like, oh God, this is terrible. You look at your student debt, you're like, what am I going to do? We just have a glut of the degrees, and then the marketplace is not valuing them all properly.
Right.
The whole system is screwed, and so you look at that and you're like, look, I'm going to need some sort of security.
Right.
I don't blame them at all.
Well, and not to mention, there's just so much more openness of thought because they didn't have beaten into them growing up the Cold War and communism is bad and socialism is evil. And that whole thing has been used to stigmatize a whole set of ideas that were just off the table forever. This generation, they're like, okay, call it socialism. Why do it? That doesn't bother us. We don't care.
I also think
they're just evaluating the ideas.
It's about optimism, and I think that people bash, our generation, especially the millennial generation. They're like, you guys, you're so cynical. I'm like, yeah, well, when we were kids, 9/11 happened, and then you took us into war for our entire adult lives.
Yeah, and
why are we supposed to believe you?
A bunch of banksters crashed the entire global economy, and we bailed them out and intentionally let the homeowners just hang out to dry.
You watch your parents lose their pension funds, then you go to college and you amass mass student debt, all the while your country is at war, and you're like, yeah, things are going
amazing. Also, we heard you on the matching outfits that day. It was completely unintentional.
Coincidence.
But I think it looked good. Saagar had some insecurities about that tie.
It's a little fat, but I'm rolling with it. The styles change. We have to change with the times.
There you go.
So the interview that got the most attention this week had to be my sit down with the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. He alluded to some potential new allegations against Joe Biden, and he discussed how he would go after the former vice president in the courts. Mind you, this was before two of his associates were arrested for allegedly violating campaign finance laws. Let's take a listen.
Because they know if we open this up, it's not the only one. It's not the only pay-for-play scheme. We're going to move to China, and then we're going to move to the United States, and they're now investigating Romania.
What's in Romania? So that's something you're saving.
I can't tell you what's in Romania because I haven't proved it. I didn't prove China.
Okay.
I proved only one thing. I got it, I tell you, if I was U.S. Attorney now, I finished my investigation in 3 months. I would have had the indictment in 2. And it would be a RICO case.
So obviously what he was doing was Romania, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, yeah, Rudy. And look, we don't know if any of this is true. If he happens to release it, I'm gonna hold my breath for the moment. But he loves to do stuff like that. Be like, oh, Romania. So I'm like, what's in Romania?
Plants the seeds, absolutely. Yeah. So there's no like murmurings in the right wingosphere about what this might be. Really?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
No. But I got my ear to the ground.
By the way, I know there were a lot of question marks about why I wasn't in that interview.
Yeah.
He's always willing to sit down. He doesn't care.
Yeah,
he doesn't mind.
Less.
I just had my kids' school conference that day, so nothing more nefarious than that.
Yeah, right.
I had to go and check out what the kids were doing. Thank you guys for watching This Week and Every Week. Make sure you subscribe, and if you haven't checked out our newsletter yet, make sure you do that too, rising.substack.com. Have a great weekend. See you back here soon.